Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. We are the original recyclers. No suits required, just guts and hard work. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
All right, guys. I found another sucker to come on and come talk about scrap with me over here on a Scrap Life podcast. I'm kind of excited about today. I've kind of found different walks of scrap, whether it's managers, owners. We had Jim Keefe on from Recycling Today. We've kind of had all the different walks of scrap, and I kind of found another nuance the other day. I was cruising around on LinkedIn, and I've been seeing these Tradefox things pop up about virtual scrap conference. So I connected with Chris Yerbey, the owner, founder of Tradefox. And man, him and I touched base. We started talking. I was like, man, you're perfect for the podcast. You know, you live and breathe scrap. So
Absolutely.
I'm pretty excited. Thanks, Chris, for taking the time. And I couldn't be happier to have you on the podcast, man.
Absolutely, Brett, man. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I've been looking forward to it. So happy to be on your show.
It's Friday, and you're down in where are you at right now? Where are you located?
I'm in Atlanta right now, so just
Okay.
flew in from Amsterdam, which is where I'm based normally. So I'm coming through Atlanta for a few days, headed down to Florida for a couple of weeks, and then back home to Amsterdam.
Nice. Down visiting family, right?
Exactly, family and friends in the Southeast. Exactly.
Perfect. So you mentioned Amsterdam, so I love to get people's history, obviously how you got in the scrap business and all that. You kind of have an interesting story. When you started telling me the story, that was kind of one of the things that really tipped me off, and I was like, man, this guy's perfect. So just give me just the Cliff Notes version, but give me your kind of history of how you got into the scrap business, how you ended up in Amsterdam, and kind of let everybody know, about your history in the scrap business.
Cool, man. Will do. It started out by failing out of college, basically. I went to school at the University of Alabama. I studied chemical engineering, which is really, I loved it, but honestly, it kicked my rear end. So I left my junior year and started my first company, which was a consulting business working for factories, implementing recycling programs. And that was my introduction. I had been reading, Entrepreneur magazine back in the day. I was looking for something that I could do to start my own business. And I really loved the whole idea of the beginning of the recycling movement in those days, right? It's 1997 is when I started that company. So I bought into a concept, started my own business, worked out really well. Years went by, started a small tech company, sold it after a couple of years. And then I went back into the recycling business, ultimately got into import-export and lost a lot of money. And I learned a lot of valuable and expensive lessons.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to start this company, Tradefox, which was essentially just it's a tech company to solve the problems that I experienced as a trader. So I started that company in Amsterdam. Reason I was there is because my wife was Dutch, long story short. So I moved over there 11 years ago.
Nice. So when you say you lost a lot of money, that's what's going to probably spark somebody's ears and say, okay, so when you, what issues did you run into that kind of caused you to lose money?
Well, there were a couple of things. So the losses so first of all, we invested a ton of money in building up relationships because we started from scratch and didn't really have any contacts in import exports to begin with. So we paid off a lot of money. That's just normal for any type of business. Although it seemed crazy that we spent tens of thousands of dollars over a few years just building up a network. But the way that we lost money typically just comes down to just being basically either. The worst case scenario, fraud. We lost 150K one year by basically being led down this road, of increasing our order size until some point where we finally got fleeced for 150K. But we've also made our share of kind of bad decisions and ended up being kind of dumped on by, either our supplier or our buyers or both. So, all those things add up, and, we basically lost about 200K over the course of 6 years in our business, just purely from unfair trading practices itself.
And I bring that up for one reason, not because, I mean, we all lost money. I mean, if you're in the scrap business and you've never lost money, you haven't been in it very long. That's what I always say is you're going to have your good years and you're going to have your years where you're just trying to keep the lights on. Whether you're just trading or you actually have physical locations or whatever it is. I haven't ran into anybody in this industry that hasn't had a year or two or more of money losing years. But where I think that the reason I wanted to ask that question of you specifically was because your whole business is kind of, your Tradefox is built around helping people kind of mitigate some of those risks. And, when you kind of told me, how you got into it and the story behind Tradefox, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And people need to understand like what it's all about. So can you give me kind of a deep dive into what you guys are really doing?
Sure, absolutely. The mission, so we started the company now 9 years ago, first of all. So we've been at this almost a decade. We changed our business model entirely about 3 years ago. First 6 years, we were a marketplace. Last 3 years now, we're a trade reputation management system. But basically it's, the mission has still remained the same always. We've been trying to create a system, community online, just leveraging existing technologies that, they're out there already. And just trying to create a safe place for companies to trade. So, the first model was, hey, let's build a marketplace, let's put a wall around it, let's check everybody that comes in, let's make sure everybody's vetted. And then we'll keep the bad guys out, and if they're bad, if they're bad, well, if they get in somehow, we kick them out, right? So that was kind of the first model. And in the last 3 years, we've become this, reputation management system basically for trading, where we decided instead of trying to create our own little box and invite people in, let's just start ranking and rating companies around the world, putting all the information that we can find on those companies in one place where it's accessible by our users, whether they trade through our platform or through their own means. And so now that's really that's the way we're solving the problem of just trying to clean up trying to get out the troublemakers in our industry, basically trying to, again, create a safe way of trading, but we're trying to kind of help on a much larger scale instead of trying to force the trade through our system, which was kind of our previous model.
So what caused the pivot on your end? What made you guys pivot from, building the wall and deciding being the gatekeeper of your business and other people's business to just basically trying to be the gatekeeper of the industry as a whole from the trading side?
Well, we learned just through trial and error a lot, of course, about, we're trying to apply technology solutions to our industry, right? So every industry's got its own nuances. And so one thing that, we kind of did in error was, we were setting up a marketplace, but, it's when we went in with, setting up a marketplace, we were already kind of, basically starting something on the wrong foot. Basically, we were fighting an uphill battle just to try to convince people that our marketplace is not like all those other marketplaces where you've either lost money or people that have.
Yeah.
So that was us trying to, in this way, we're basically saying, hey, we've got a safe way, change the way you do your business and come through our conduit, trade through our platform, and it's a marketplace. And things will be better and safe. And that was a hard sell, and it makes a lot of sense why people were not so excited about that idea. And then we had this epiphany at one point, about say 4 years ago or so, where I said, okay, we've learned a lot in the first 5 years. Let's take everything off the table and let's start from scratch. What is it that we know? What can we do here? How do we make the solution now that we have 5 years experience, in 4 or 5 years? And that's when we realized, okay, well, we essentially what we need to be doing is just looking at all these companies around the world, finding out all the information and basically just, rating those companies from our system. That way people can do business the way they want to do business instead of trying to get them to change the way they do business. I think that was a huge kind of breakthrough for us as well, because when you're trying to get people to change the way they do business, it's a tough battle, basically, you know. So
yeah, well, no, and it's hard. I mean, it's hard because people then at some point might think you're playing favorites, right? They might say, okay, well, you know, if you just want to be let in by the gatekeeper so that you can do business with a certain person or whatever the case may be. Versus, I like your approach. I think the pivot is smart because it now opens you up to everybody. As long as if they want to take more risk, if you rate a company as maybe a little bit more risky to deal with, but they feel like that pricing that they're being offered is worth that risk, then it gives them the opportunity to take that. If they only looking for AAA rated, like a bond, then they're gonna look for those people and know that they might not get that extra penny or two. I like that pivot because it kind of puts you as a neutral observer and really just reporting the facts.
Exactly. Yeah, I appreciate that. And indeed that is the case. And we learned that, over time. We assumed that, people were only going to strive for for finding companies with the best ratings. But of course, I know this as a trader, there's a lot of competition when you're trying to deal with the best of the best. And as a trader, we're trying to mitigate risk in ways that we can manage that risk, but other companies are not able to manage that risk. Yeah. And we didn't even really think about our own business model as a trader when we were building the first version, to be honest with you. And then as we started looking back on it, made a lot of sense, because people, like you said, they go for the companies that don't have the AAA rating, so to speak, because they can handle the risk. And that has opened us up and given us a lot more value to more people, I should say, more people, more companies.
So you having been, a trader yourself previously, does that, I would assume that gives you kind of an inherent advantage when you're sitting there trying to determine, whether it's a consumer, on the other side of the world, or, when you look for a criteria of a AAA rated or a great consumer, yeah. What are you looking for in that consumer or trader or broker? What are the big outlying factors that you're looking for to give them an exemplary rating?
Well, the way that we modeled our scoring system, so we basically said, okay, let's set up like a system consisting of 3 buckets of information. And as long as we have information in any of these 3 buckets, we can start to score the company. So sometimes you have more information, like the first bucket is information that we get from credit processing companies like Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, these are credit safe. And we look at that information differently. We're not looking for signs of payment, capability to pay. We're looking for signs of trustworthiness and reliability. So that's one bucket. And then we have this import-export bucket, which now has almost, I think it's 1.7 million trades in it and growing pretty fast. We can look in that bucket and we look for signs, again, of trustworthiness and reliability. We look for volumes. We look at signs of, we can look in to see, do they change trading partners way too often? That's one thing that we can that signifies in our mind a lot of risk. And if the answer is yes, then we maybe get involved and have our people contact some of their customers and get more information from them. And then the third bucket is to us the most important. And that's the feedback ratings that we get from our members. So this is specifically buyer-seller feedback. So we have all the trade data. So then we say, okay, let's take a look at these, 27 or 50 different trading partners of theirs to see how many of these companies we can get to rate this company. Because, if you can tell me what, 15 or 20, buyers have to say about a seller or vice versa, that's probably the best information I can have at my fingertips. And we look at these 3 buckets and basically have an algorithm that favors the third bucket more than the second more than the first. And yeah, it just goes to that, and it continually updates. So, it's like every analysis is done on this buckets information, all like developed by us, looking at all the data that we have and, trying to figure out like, what can we infer from this data that says that the company itself is reliable and trustworthy. So that's how basically the nuts and bolts of how it works.
So reversing back a little bit, when you were actually trading yourself, before you had set Tradefox up, when you actually were just doing the trading, what services, what was out there, what helped you determine who to do business with? I mean, was it just a meet and, trying to go to these the ISRIs or the BIRs of the world and try and just kind of go with your gut? I mean, what existed before this, if anything, that kind of helped you determine who would be a good potential business partner with you, someone you could do business with?
I found it, keep in mind that I came into this import export business as an industry person, but as an outsider to global trade, right? So so essentially I was coming in fresh, and I couldn't believe how difficult it was and how expensive it was to learn lessons and create a valuable trading network. It had a lot to do with process of elimination. Sure, you can get out and meet all kinds of people. You go to conferences, you can pick up back in those days, Yellow Pages or whatever. You can go from scrapyard to scrapyard and meet people and try to create those relationships. But what I learned over time is that really the most valuable information comes from the friends that I make along the way, the other traders and brokers and people that work at yards that know something about what's going on in that area. It's people that I develop a relationship with. Their opinions was what mattered the most. And then secondly, and most expensively, it was the process of elimination of basically getting, getting in a deal, realize that you're not going to make a profit on this trade because this person's taking advantage of the situation, and you just mark those guys off your list and keep going. And man, that's a super inefficient, extremely expensive way to build up a network. But I didn't know of another way of doing it, because even if you go to ISRI, I mean, you still can meet people that well, there's two sides to every story, right? But when the markets fall and suddenly orders getting canceled, or market prices are changing, and suddenly there's issues with with quality, et cetera, you can kind of read between the lines, that people are trying to kind of make up for mistakes that they made at your expense. And that comes from every sector. I mean, it happens. I've had problems with people in different trade associations. There was no safe way to do it. It's just process of elimination. So that's basically it,
So so it's actually, when I sit there and think about it, I mean, you talk about like the Better Business Bureau or like Dun and Bradstreet, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're trying to establish, and establishing more and more every day for the scrap industry as a whole, right?
Right. That's
and
correct.
And who do you feel is like your biggest, because I think about, you and I had this conversation previously over the phone, and you're like, so how do you, decide who you do business with, and from a broker's standpoint or whatever? And I said, I have some good friends that are brokers, and that's what they are. And we have these conversations a lot. And I just say, I have no desire to go find consumers in other countries. My personal preference is to find a broker based here in the United States or in North America, and just someone I can trust, I got a relationship with, I know who's a good consumer for certain items, and then just let them go to work on their consumers, right?
Right.
And they talk about some of the pitfalls and kind of who deciding who to buy from and who to trade with and whatnot. And what's the best way to get those guys to value what you're offering more? I mean, how do you get those guys convinced that what you bring to the table at Tradefox is, is a worthy, investment, whether it's is it a subscription based model? Is it a,
we have annual and monthly subscriptions. So yeah, I mean, basically, the way we do it is just simply by showing them, giving them access to the product and showing them that it works. We're just guaranteeing a good experience based on, a money back guarantee, essentially. So, we don't want to take anybody's money, unless we've earned it, honestly. We've got a lot of growing ahead of us, and we want to build up our allies, and we want to make friends with everybody we can in the business, because also we depend on that information that they give us. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is capture that information that's, in the heads of thousands of people around the world and create a usable and sensible system that people can, benefit from so they can make the right decisions. But of course, it depends on their involvement as well. So yeah, we just, simply, long story short, I mean, we just built up the value. We've got now about 300, and it's more than, it used to be 350 data contributors. So these are companies that receive a discount for using the services because they're flooding in lots of trade feedback reviews. And so that like seeds the system. We got over we're growing in that pretty quickly. Like over, I want to say about a year ago, we had only about 60 trade reviews in our system. We have almost 20,000 now.
Oh, wow.
And so we're like,
That's awesome.
It's really, that's a huge milestone. I'm waiting on that 20,000 number to hit so we can just have a little celebration. So that's going to be a milestone for us. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about, and the thing is, we wouldn't get there without people buying into what we do. So we just have to explain, here's what we're doing, here's the vision, here's what we want to be for everybody. And some people don't want it, some people think it's a great idea, but would not like to support it. But to be honest with you, nowadays we're getting a lot more support than we had in the first couple of years. So we've kind of reached a critical mass now where it's the point of no return. It's basically just going forward now. There's not any, it's just a matter of time before we have, 100,000 trade reviews, 500,000 trade reviews.
Are you getting any love from banks or like credit rating agencies, basically people that are securing the debt of these brokers, traders? I mean, are they saying, hey, we'd like to see, a Tradefox review on these consumers before we basically are willing to take on, these receivables or whatever? Have you gone down that road at all, or?
A little bit, yeah. So we are very much targeting that for the long term. And what the most interest we've gotten so far is from insurance agencies, because they're hungry for as many just different data sources as they can get their hands on to rate companies. And when you talk about extending credit terms to a company, there's enough information out there nowadays to credit processing, credit bureaus and other systems to get a good gauge on whether or not a company is going to pay their bills or not. So that's been done, and it's pretty well mastered now. And we're not going to try to compete with that space.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about how a company treats their trading partners out. In other words, they may pay all their bills on time, but how do they make that money to pay the bills? Are they treating people right? And this is becoming it's interesting to a number of insurance companies, especially. We are also in discussions now for over a year with potentially creating a new insurance product around our data, actually, which is ensuring not the payment potential of a company, but whether or not things happen, such as like basically insurance against fraud, insurance against a canceled agreement, insurance against uncollected quality claims, these types of things. There's no insurance for that right now, and that creates a lot of problems for traders and companies, importers, exporters as well. And that's really where we have our minds kind of focused on. We're trying to get down that track, because if we can offer that insurance policy for the industry, that's a huge win. So we go that way.
Yeah.
Banks, we don't have to be honest with you, we've not really pushed down that track. I don't really. Okay. I'm sure there is definitely some value in the long term, but it's not really something we've looked into hardcore yet.
That makes sense. And I can't express with even our own team, each one of our facilities and our businesses, how important reviews are, right? I mean, we push reviews because A, it's good, honest feedback, but B, I mean, how often do you go on to Amazon or whatever, and you're looking for a certain product, and then that's a product review, right? It's no different when you're trading with somebody. I mean, to have genuine feedback from other businesses, other companies that are the same size as you, larger or smaller, but that are actually doing business with that individual, I can't help but think that that's a pretty big get. If you're a trader and you want people to give you a shot, if you can get legitimate feedback from a basically a neutral source like Tradefox, I can't help but think that that's going to at least give people that warm, cozy feeling like, I'm going to give that individual a shot at a couple containers just to see if the reviews are true, right? So it feels like the review part of what you're doing has got to be just the heads and shoulders above the rest of it. I mean, just because it's other people in the industry validating your worthiness.
Totally. I mean, and I think there's two comments to that. One, when you think about rating systems that exist for items that you're buying on Amazon, I can lose $1,000, to a store that maybe didn't behave themselves or ship me some poor quality product, but I can't take a $200,000 loss, right? So it's so much more important to make sure that you have that kind of information before you enter a transaction of that size, right? Because people are continuously taking risk in this business, and lots of money is being lost. And so certainly we provide that value on the front end. So knowing that, it makes it, we can at least say, hey, over the last, X number of transactions, this is what their buyers say about this company. But the other side of that coin is also the accountability side as well, right? So we not only give information about the reliability and trustworthiness of companies, but also we have a system in place so that if any of these companies in our system trade unfairly with your company, we even have a panel in the system for reporting unfair trades on Tradefox.
Okay.
So basically, if the deal goes bad, some good examples. We've got a few of these that we have on our list now, but where money's transferred, for example, to a supplier. Clear records of it. We see all the evidence. We know what's going on. They have to convince our panel basically that this is a genuine problem. We're not getting into little, petty disputes, and we can't really, substantiate. But we see there's enough of these problems where people are trading really unfairly, and they need to do the right thing. And so those guys, when our panel agrees, they go on our list, they get flagged. It's on their profile. So that's the other side of it as well, right? That they can leverage our network in order to make sure that people are trading fairly with them. And so that's the other side of the coin.
Have you ever thought about going into the mediation business? I mean, as far as between two companies, because there's always that old two sides to every story, right? And then there's usually, it could be one person being treated unfairly, or it could just be two sides of every story and trying to find that sweet spot that everybody can live with, right? In an uncomfortable situation.
That's right. I mean, we've certainly considered it and decided that we don't want to get into that business ourselves. But what we have on the drawing board is essentially a model for mediation that's for the scrap industry, which other companies, mediation firms, could institute the procedures and policies that we're putting together. They could follow that in a process for collecting in our industry or getting an agreement between two parties. We've not fleshed that out all the way. It's a high level thing, but ultimately, there's so many different parts that we, there's I guess about 10 or 12 different problems that we've identified in global trade, which need to be sorted out one way or the other. And we're trying to think of how can we add value without trying to start, 10 different businesses, right? So ultimately, we want to have other companies on board that are working with us using our platform, like shipping companies, insurance companies, banking, mediation services, inspection. There's a lot of different, separate business entities that we would love to have as partners, just utilizing our service, allowing us to orchestrate the actual trade.
Because there's just so many nuances to it. So I remember, and I'll kind of tell a little story real quick, but I remember probably a year and a half ago, I really started to, post more on LinkedIn, and I started posting who I was selling scrap to, and people were hitting me up all the time and saying, why are you saying who you're selling your scrap to, right? And I was like, because I'm like, at the end of the day, I want the good players out there. I want them to be recognized, right? So if I'm being very vocal about what our company does, how we go about our business, I want people to know that I'm basically saying that if I'm willing to sell to this individual or this company, then I'm kind of putting my stamp of approval on it, right? In my own way. And And so it wasn't very hard for me because, scrap is super relationship driven business, right? Like, I mean, you have relationships and it's hard to, work into some of those relationships. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, to actually get to a point where you have that trust. And then once you have it, I've always said, I mean, the reason I never have minded posting who I'm selling stuff to is because I'm proud of, the business partners I've been able to kind of, accumulate over the years, right? But I think there's still a lot of people that don't understand that concept because they feel like there's a lot of trade secrets, a lot of people that, hey, I got a good in, with this guy going to this country with this product, yada, yada, yada. I don't want anybody else to know or else they're going to blow up my market, right?
Yep.
So how do you navigate those waters there at Tradefox?
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing is the new mindset as I've noticed in my career. So silos of information that protected contacts, right? They are actually they may be the assets of a lot of companies, but that siloing of information is actually creating the problems that we suffer from in global trade for sure. The other thing that is important is people, for example, would gladly come to Tradefox and report a company that has wronged them, but not as many people are willing to come and report companies that have done great by them, right? Because they want to keep that good buyer, that good seller. That's the old school mentality. I mean, it is. Let's just say there's old school, there's new school. I'm a bit old school, I'm a bit new school, right? I think we're all are. So. But that's the old school method, and the new school method says that, look, if we get up there and we're vocal about it and we pat these guys in the back that trade well with us, we're going to not only encourage that behavior again on future business, but we're going to reward them with better, with other companies that are going to supply them as well. Now, what does that mean? That means that buyer, for example, is going to have a better margin. That trader is going to have a better margin on the deal. But it takes a better margin to do business the right way, especially if you're a producer, for sure. So I think these things, I believe that more transparency and more openness, it's the new way of doing business. It's fun to watch it changing, and people are trying to grapple with how does this make sense? But this is how it makes sense. You got to reward the people that treat you right, because they're in business to make money too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter, and that's what I always said. I'm here to support the good players out there and kind of give them props where props are due. And I believe that's how you as your company can grow too. Like, we've grown because people are like, oh, you deal with these guys or these guys, then and here's the product we sell, and we stand behind our product, and we're willing to kind of put that out there, right? And I think that mentality is, people are a little more willing to share nowadays, than previous. I feel like, how do you convince someone to go on and share those positive reviews? What does that process look like to get somebody to come on and say, hey, I've done business with these guys and they're legit?
Yeah, we've been trying to work out the answer to that question for several years now. And I'll tell you where we kind of have progressed to. It's a mind, kind of a shift in the way people do business, basically. And I think that, of course, we can talk forever about these great, possibilities if you do business in this new way. But, I mean, in the end, we just need to just give them examples, and show them, like, or ask questions like, have you considered this outcome, if you were to go this route? Give examples of how other people are doing business, it's people, when you're successful in business, you've learned how to make money, and that's like that in case of our business, in an intransparent market. You've learned to make money in a system that is intransparent with siloed information, and suddenly the game has changed, right? And in the beginning, there's a lot of resistance, and we're just trying to kind of convince people that they should open up more. But as people start to open up more, and you can see it in the numbers, and you see the trade feedbacks being shared. Now, what we've noticed in the last year is more people, looking to us and saying, hey, how can we get on board with this, this way? Or how is this working for other companies? And then when they're receptive or asking the how and whys, then we could just tell them what we've learned over time and how this can work for their business. I think ultimately it comes down to maybe like some little, kind of small videos that would help educate and give examples of how it's working for other people's businesses so that they can apply that into their own and kind of make sense of all these changes that have come about.
Yeah, my biggest thing in life and in business, I think it reverberates into our business is the positivity. It will win out, and the positivity isn't just walking around with a smile on your face all the time, like, hey, life is great. No, the positivity is in giving positive feedback about people and about individuals that are doing a great job, about other companies that are doing a great job, and kind of knowing that the world is abundant. Everybody can still be successful by helping other people grow their business as well, right? And I think that abundant mentality is where, if we can get people to understand that, then it's not going to it doesn't take away from your success. It's just helping other people that are doing a good job. It's just helping promote them so that they can make money, but grow their business and support their employees and their families and everything else as well, right?
Totally. I mean, it's interesting to see this change, because like I literally, this is one of the biggest struggles that we've had, like trying to get this whole business model to work, is we needed to wait. We're kind of ahead of our time a little bit, or kind of behind the wave a bit, so, but like we needed this kind of shift of mindset to come on, and we second generation, third generation, scrappers, or consumers, people that working for their parents, and the younger generations are seeing this the world differently, and they've understand and embraced the technology that we have, social media, and they want to find new ways of doing business, and doing business online is just the future, right? So that's just kind of one thing that nobody would do before. They won't do any business online. Now we even now people are trying to figure out, how can we do this? So
yeah,
it's fun to watch that, and I'm just glad that we were able to kind of wait it out long enough to catch up with people's kind of general mindsets on how business should be done.
And I feel like, it's a review game. Like, not to kind of minimize or like get neck your business all the way into just one thing, but when I want to go to a restaurant and I'm traveling to Nashville or wherever, I'll get on Yelp. Someplace say I've never been, or I don't have any locals there. I'll get on Yelp and I'll figure out, okay, who's got the best restaurant views and whatever else, right? I think Yelp has kind of turned into that, restaurants and bars. And they used to be reviewing a lot of stuff, and I feel like they just started narrowing, TripAdvisor. We want to go somewhere, I want to go to a certain country, TripAdvisor, and see what's out there. And I could really see this being just a monster review game of just, okay, I want to sell aluminum. And I feel like I need to figure out who's a good consumer of 381, figure that out. And I'm going to go on, I'm going to see who's a buyer of it. What does their review look like? What's their profile look like? Who's doing business with them? And, that person might be worth giving a shot to, right? But it's got to be the shippers, the scrap recycling companies willing to put their name on who they're doing business with.
Yeah.
And that's just a matter of confidence in what you're doing and how you're doing it, and saying, if you're better than me, come get it. Better than me at what I'm doing, then come take my business. But I'm pretty confident that I'm good at what I do, where I'm doing it. So I'm willing to put it out there, but it's a mindset game. But in your business, it feels it's a review game, and getting the good players, kind of the cream rises to the top.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. It's as some people say that they're concerned that it lowers the bar and it makes it easy for for somebody that's coming into the industry to come in and tackle the market and and make business opportunities out of it. But the thing is, and we also provide transparency into the fact that that person or that company is new as well, right? So there's that visibility into that company's reputation as well. And people that are new in the business, we've all, I came in as an outsider, so I wasn't, really born into this industry basically directly. So, I was always, kind of fighting to get my way in. That's just normal business, So sure, we make it easier and less expensive for people to enter into the business, but that also should bring in some really great people with high integrity that everybody's going to give a chance to, I think in the end, it basically makes it easier for everybody, makes it easier for everybody to do the business. And if we can cut away like, a good portion of the 200 million plus that's lost every year because of unfair trading practices, if we can put a huge dent in that, that's just going to be good for everybody, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's good on so many levels.
Yeah.
So for a guy that didn't start in the scrap business and just kind of found your way into it after college, what's kept you in it so long? What's kept you in here doing what you're doing and still kind of beating your head against the scrap wall with the rest of us for as long as you have?
There's this irrational aspect of in some ways of the fact that scrap just gets in your blood basically at some point. So I started this thing out with these, I started out the import-export business thinking, hey, it's going to be, pretty cool to travel around the world. I get to meet people from different countries. I love to travel. I can pay for it with my business. That sounds real glamorous. And of course, that is the glamorous side of being a trader. That is a very nice thing, and I enjoyed that. But it comes at a very serious cost, so a lot of frustration, a lot of problems. You're constantly, as a trader, you're constantly, stuck in the middle and getting hit from both sides, so that was a tough business. But the kind of glamorous aspect wears off pretty quick after it gets real. And then ultimately what keeps you in the business is just the fact that it just somehow becomes a part of who you are. It's just when you're breaking your neck looking at a scrapyard every time you're going down the interstate, or you're flying into airport, you're checking out what kind of stocks that other company has. That it's kind of just it's just who you are then, and that never's going to change. So I got to a point where we lost all that money that year. I was about to say, what, take your business and shove it. I'm out of here. You can have this crap, guys. You can have this crap. I'm done. I'm going to find something else to do. And literally, that was the closest I ever came, but literally just saying I'm going to turn my back on all this. But that was the moment where I decided I was going to start this company. So I either said I'm either going to take these lessons that I've learned and my knowledge and all the learnings in my life for that matter, and put it into something that's going to solve these problems, or I'm just going to leave. And 10 years later now, I'm still here. So.
You're still here. I love it. No, before we go, man, I want to kind of give you the opportunity. To me, it's a genius idea, but it's a good way to help promote what you're doing. It's a good way to help promote the industry. But can you touch on your virtual conference that you have coming up? The days. Give everybody the information, but
sure.
And we can go. We'll post that on the site. But just talk about why you're doing it, what you're doing, and kind of the premise behind it, because I really love the idea.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to. When we started this, as I've already said, we were looking at creating this safe system for people to trade, and try to solve a lot of problems in the scrap industry in general. And as things went forward, we started seeing more and more problems and started coming up with ways that we're going to try to help these problems, help solve these problems. Well, the latest problem was this this pandemic situation, right? Basically, back in end of 2019, early 2020, everything shut down. People were just struggling to figure out what to do to save their businesses. Containers are stuck everywhere, and it looked like we're going to be locked down for a long time, and we were. And so, conference after conference is canceled, and we were thinking, okay, what can we do, to help? What's our role going to be? And it just came to me that we need to have we have all the capability. We're a tech company. We even had a company that's across the hall in the building that we work at that builds a virtual conference product. So I'm like, I went to talk to the guy and I was like, man, could we plug your system into our system and help our industry out, because this is how we meet each other. This is how trade is done. We need to, the old handshake may be gone, but we still need to create these relationships to make sure trade's moving. And so he said yes and took an interest in it. We said, okay, so we're not in the conference business. We don't know anything about conferences. We didn't know anything about it. We still don't know much. But we knew we could help. This is our way of helping and giving back. So we set it up. We do it. We had our first conference, back in 2020 in the fall, and it was well appreciated, a huge success, and a lot of business relationships were made. And so we decided this is going to be a part of our product going forward, because the mission is the same. We're trying to connect the people of integrity together to trade. We're trying to help the industry. That's what we do. And this is a great way of doing it. So we've now decided that we're switching over to a quarterly conference. So our goal now is to create a networking conference that we can run every three to 4 months.
Yeah.
And with the real KPI of connections made, like we're all focused on bringing people together, and we do vet them. We don't let everybody have networking access to the site, so we have our own data, so we know which companies are that we can say these are the good ones, and we allow certain people to upgrade and get full access tickets.
Yeah.
The rest of them can participate in keynotes. So that's what we're doing now. It's at conference.tradefox.co is the website where, in case anybody wants to check this in the future, see what's coming up.
Awesome. And what's the dates?
The dates of the next one's coming up is October 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Okay. So people can just log in and just kind of peruse and kind of either listen to, you have some roundtable discussions. You got a couple of guest speakers. I saw Sean Davidson or Davis. Yeah. So I mentioned him to you yesterday. I mean, a great guy. He understands. He's got a real passion for the scrap industry. I think he's trying to do it. There's people out there that are doing it because they want to make money, and I'm okay with that. I mean, shit,
Sure.
Everybody's got to make a living, but there's people out there that are doing it to make a living, but also are trying to create and make it better. And I get that vibe from you, and you and I originally talked, and Sean's definitely one of those people. I mean, he's trying to build a business. There is no doubt. But he's also trying to build a business for all the right reasons and to make the industry better. And so I saw him popped up on my screen the other day as a speaker, and I was like, oh, that's great, man. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a good event. I look forward to checking it out and being a part of it if the opportunity arises. But more than anything, just I like seeing good people succeed, man. So thanks for putting it together. And any parting shots if people want to get a hold of you, or how do they get a hold of you? They want to talk.
I can be reached quite easily through our website. We have a support section there. You click on it, and normally I'm one of the people that gets referred to. You could drop an email to me also, chris@tradefox.co. That's another way to get in touch with me directly. And hey, Brett, man, I really appreciate the opportunity to jump on here and talk a little bit about what we do. I appreciate your interest in what we're doing. It is a labor of love, man, and we're indeed. I appreciate your confidence saying that we're in the group with Sean Davis, and I agree. We're trying to make a difference, and of course we're building a business, but we're in it to make change. So
yeah, those are the best businesses, man. When you get to change your industry up a little bit and make it better and make some money at the same time. I mean,
right.
It's capitalism at its finest, but
right.
with the labor of love and mixed in. All right, man. Appreciate you taking the time, and you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much, Brett. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Chris.